We can't say the future without AI. I mean, there's no way around it. 50% of workers now believe AI is going to improve their experience. When I come into the meeting room, I need a way to incorporate my AI with what's going on in the meeting. It's almost a bring your own AI type of a concept. Most of what we do in our day-to-day is going to change significantly.
Hear the latest AV trends and predictions in this episode of Crestron's Smarter Spaces podcast on your preferred podcast platform.
I mean, we're always taught, you have a backup projector, have a backup touch panel, have a backup control system, so that if something goes wrong or a plan goes awry, just basically all you can do is have a B plan in that case.
So who's got a plan B?
Plan B? Plan B, we need a plan C, D, E. We need more alphabets.
What does a massive return to office mean to IT and AV managers? Holoplot has undergone a massive layoff. And what does that mean if you've already spec'd that into your next project? All that and more next on AV Week. This is AV Week, episode 701, recorded Friday, January 24th, 2025. Enhancing the return to office. This is AV Week, your weekly wrap-up of the biggest AV news and information we have gathered. My name is Tim Albright. I am your host. With us to discuss news and information we have gathered, first and foremost, Kelly Teal, a world-class kick-butt engineer and designer. How are you, ma'am?
I'm great. Thank you for having me, as always.
Absolutely. Good to see you. Also with us is an old friend of mine, Rob Raspberry. He generally hangs out with our friends over at EdTech, but he has graced us with his presence today. He is from Drexel. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Tim. Looking forward to a very spirited and energetic conversation.
We got a couple pieces, so yeah, it will be spirited. And last but not least, a young man I met a couple months ago. His name is Elliot Moores. He is with CTI. CTI, of course, is our parent corporation, a company that owns AVNation. So welcome, Mr. Elliot.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And that accent, ladies and gentlemen, he is not from St. Louis. Elliot is up in Manchester way over in the UK. So we'll get to hang out with him at ISE in about a week, actually. By the time this posts, it'll be a week. We'll talk about that more. You can check out our coverage. Mitchell has already been working his fingers to the bone, editing all of our previews. But that week, obviously, he will be working even harder than he has been, which is saying something because Mitchell works awfully hard. First story comes to us from Pro AVL Asia, a major layoff hit to audio technology firm Holoplot as Sphere Entertainment Company redirects its focus exclusively toward Sphere venue projects, with approximately 70 employees in sales, marketing, and support roles being cut primarily from the company's Berlin headquarters. The restructuring follows Sphere's complete acquisition of Holoplot in May 2024, raising concerns about ongoing support for the company's global distribution network and high-profile installations, including Lightroom venues in London and Seoul and Egypt's mosque. The Sphere Entertainment Company has not commented on the announcement, at least not to AVL Asia. This actually is something that came down the pipeline over the course of 2 or 3 days, with us here at AVNation getting some information, and then Pro AVL Asia, as well as AV Magazine, writing stories about this. Kelly, we'll start with you on this. This is a huge deal for folks that have already designed Holoplot speakers into their systems, not talking about the Sphere, but other ones as well. How can customers, how can IT managers, what can they do, actually, when this side of mergers and acquisition comes to fruition?
Yeah, this is always tough, no matter the situation, because with Sphere and their acquisition of Holoplot and their shift towards focusing exclusively on Sphere projects, just based on what the article said, the first thing I would do if I was an IT manager, and I've been in this situation before, is you need to secure immediate support and resources. So the first thing you have to do is contact manufacturers and distributors, request official statements for future product support, warranties, and updates. Ask about your spare parts, maintenance contracts, last time buy options before supplies run out, because that will happen. And especially, you're going to have to engage with industry forums. So you may have to connect with Holoplot users and resellers and integrators for troubleshooting at some point in time, and best practices. And then you got to assess that risk and create kind of a transition plan. You got to evaluate how long your existing system can last, and then if they do stop software updates, which they will, how long will your system remain viable, and can you stockpile essential parts to extend its life cycle? And it's a really hard position to be in. So once you're in this position, you do have to at some point consider third-party maintenance and support. Some independent AV and IT firms specifically will specialize in maintaining discontinued tech and may provide long-term solutions, but that's not always a guarantee. And then the big thing that nobody wants to hear is explore alternative technologies and competitors, and identify the competitor's product and look at rival beamforming and spatial audio systems, like Low Acoustics and Meyer Sound, and you just evaluate how alternatives may match the capabilities of Holoplot, because a lot of what Holoplot offered, where you could, instead of a full switch, can Holoplot tech be integrated with other platforms? Can we avoid vendor lock-in by adopting modular AV and IT solutions? So there's a lot that you have to consider with this when you are suddenly faced with this predicament, because a lot of this too falls into abandonment of broader market and customers. So, for instance, their shift to the Sphere exclusive projects also puts its global distribution network at risk. Their partners across the globe and high-profile venues, are now left in limbo. So it sucks to say, but that's essentially what it is. You're left hanging. It may cause damage to Holoplot's reputation too, and push customers towards competitors without even trying. So I feel like there's a few different ways to approach this, but I really think you have to really consult with what system you are providing, consult with your integrators. Some experienced integrators can help design a migration plan that reduces downtime, and you just have to, unfortunately, look at your other options sometimes at that point.
Rob, as of this recording, which we were recording this on the 24th of January, Holoplot is still listed on ISE's website as having a stand. Also listed as having a demo room. Now, what that means come the actual 4th of February, I don't know, based on this reporting and the fact that Sphere is not responding yet to press inquiries. But from your standpoint and the standpoint of making sure that your classrooms are ready to go, whatever the start of the semester is, what would you say to somebody who is either designed this already into a upcoming project, or somebody who has already installed it and suddenly looking at as Kelly said, service and maintenance longevity?
That's a really tough spot to be in. And I hate to say it, not that it would help, but the first thing that I guess to do is contact your legal people and see what alternatives there are. And typically an AV person or in the classroom will have a B project or a B plan in place. And then you basically just have to be able to do the best of your ability to shift and, know who your competitors or what the other platform is, or what quick plan you're going to make an adjustment to. We're always taught on a simple basis, if you have a backup projector, have a backup touch panel, have a backup control system, so that if something goes wrong or a plan goes awry, you're not sitting there fumbling your thumbs wondering what's going on, and the instructors and the deans and the presidents are throwing stuff at you wondering what's going on. Just basically all you can do is have a B plan in that case. And then the other thing is it's interesting. I sort of wanted to, because I saw this Sphere a couple of years back, and I was sort of blown away by the way it was set up and the technology in it. But then in the back of my head, I said, where else are you going to be able to apply this? It almost seemed like the Holo and the technology would just be perfect for the Sphere. And I don't know why that popped out of my head just now, but when I was in there looking at this, I was saying, what other applications are there for this? And look at what's happened. It's horrible.
Elliot, I'm going to pick on something that Kelly said. How do you help clients with a migration plan should the technology that they're leaning on suddenly go away?
I think Kelly summarized it perfectly, right? I think you've got to go back to the drawing board and what the initial requirement was that drove the selection of Holoplot in the first place, right? Is it an environmental challenge that you need to relook at? Especially in, sort of the Masjid Mosque in Egypt, that was a very, very specific requirement, right? Because of the environment and the architectural impact on how sound was going to be consumed in that space. And so, but to Rob's point, I genuinely think, I probably don't think this is a surprise, right? And hear me out, is because if I'm Sphere Entertainment Group and I'm looking, they had a 30% share initially, right? And to your point, Rob, I totally agree with you. I look at that product and it's so bespoke and so unique, right? That actually it only really suits high experience environments, right? Where you are going to take a lot of people into a single space and you need that steering technology and that detail in place, right? So if I'm Sphere Entertainment, I'm probably looking at my investment and going, hey, over the last 12, 18 months, I've sold X amount of X1 and X2 line arrays. But actually, I've probably only sold them to people who are going to compete against my venues, right? Pretty honestly, right? I'm going to put them, they're going to go into venues that ultimately are going to compete from an experience perspective with Sphere Entertainment. So why am I going to be funding the technology advancement and progression of another competing venue? So I actually think from their point of view, they've probably just looked at it and gone, because it doesn't, the Holoplot model for me, I found it really odd. I was a bit like you, Rob. I went to the Sphere and I was blown away by it. But when I started to see the announcements come out about the distribution model, it doesn't make sense. Distribution is there to deliver products to the masses, but Holoplot is not a mass ship product, right? So it's not, you're not going to be selling thousands and thousands and thousands of line arrays where you need huge distribution and logistics networks to put. That's not what that product is. So for me, it was never a distribution product. So none of it really, it's hindsight's a great thing, right? But I certainly think now looking back, I go, yeah, I get it. Right? I get it. It's not a surprise to me now looking at it, because it sort of makes sense. You don't want to fund anybody else's advancement in your marketplace, because that's just crazy, right? And secondly is you were nowhere near doing the numbers to make your distribution model successful. So I think you probably needed a rethink.
No, that's actually a fair point. I didn't even think about the fact that they were funding basically their competitors. Next story comes to us from darn near any place you Google return to office. JP Morgan has mandated a full return to office policy for its remaining 40% of remote workers, despite facing employee pushback that led to shutting down comments on an internal message board. That's fantastic. CEO Jamie Dimon advocates for in-person work to boost, quote unquote, boost innovation and collaboration. Policy mirrors Amazon's recent struggles with implementation, where the tech giant faces office space shortages in 7 U.S. cities and maintains flexible arrangements in international locations like the UK and Netherlands due to legal requirements. The controversial shift comes as research from Harvard Business Review suggests potential downsides, citing a Trip.com study that found hybrid workers showed equal productivity with 35% lower attrition compared to full-time office workers. Rob, you guys have been in a different situation, because my understanding Drexel has been, in-person classes for a while now. But when you look at, folks that are in your position, and suddenly you're going to have to start managing 100% occupancy in conference rooms, 100% occupancy in huddle spaces, what would you say to those folks that suddenly have to support 100% workforce in person?
So maybe I have to take sort of a backwards or different aspect to it. So the first thing, unfortunately, I have to say, your management's your management, the owners are the owners, and they're going to do things the way they want to do things, even if data shows that doing it a certain way may be as productive, or if not more. I think as a manager, you need to be aware of the two possibilities. And I'll give you an example. So I am a director of classroom technology and things of that. So my one team is in person all the time. There are certain aspects where you have to be face-to-face and have to be face-to-face in person, but as part of an IT department, the other half does with collaboration, Zoom, Teams, different kinds of things. A lot of the networking folks, they're remote because they don't need that physical space. Now, fortunately for us, the real estate hasn't changed. So, as a manager, when I talk to other people who are preparing, say that more people have to come back, you have to look at your resources, your phones, the facilities, all these kinds of things. You need to sort of go back to the future and take a look at back when you were in person, figure out and anticipate those kinds of resources that you have to allocate for that. So it's, for me, I'm already in. When we were in the pandemic, we were 100% remote. But at some point, I knew that we had to come back. So I had to look at, where is my staff going to be? Where are they going to be situated? What resources do they need to work and effectively produce in person? So, that's, have to sort of think forward, think backward about what is necessary to bring it back. But in the situation of corporate, that's even more difficult. I remember, recently going to Seattle, and it's like, deserted. And how do you, if you've already adjusted your real estate, how do you come back to fully in person? I wish I had, more detailed answers for, the solution for this. But, again, as a manager, you have to sort of anticipate that, hey, at some point, we've got to come back.
I will throw something that has nothing to do with AV, has nothing to do with technology. And that is just the simple fact of traffic. And Rob mentioned Seattle. Seattle is where one of Amazon's biggest offices are. You have 100% RTO, 100% return to office. You've got all those people on the freaking road. Yeah, I don't even want to think about that. I mean, the other day, and St. Louis is not Atlanta. St. Louis is not LA. Don't misunderstand what I'm going to say. But somebody in St. Louis has got a return to office policy, because there's more people on the road than there was a year ago at the same time that I commute. Elliot, from an integrator standpoint, yes, it will be a boon, right? You guys will be more busy. But from helping your customers walk through this, how do you do that? Like, how do you say, okay, guys, what is it that you need, and how do you walk them through this 100% return to office?
I think we've got to approach it probably slightly different than we did pre-pandemic, right? Because the whole culture around going to work was a functional mindset, right? We were going to complete a job and a task and work with our team. Whereas I think now, because everybody's learned to function remotely, right, is what Amazon and JP Morgan and any organization that are looking at trying to promote a return to office 100% are saying is, hey, it's not that we're doing things really badly. It's just that we're not reaching the peaks of performance that we were used to or that we want, right? So I think actually now the office has got to take an entirely different look and feel. It's got to be somewhere that offers employees something that working from home doesn't, right? As an experience and as an environment. There's got to be a genuine reason to get people, in order to get that mentality shift within the workforce. I think there's got to be a genuine reason to make people go, hey, I really want to go back into the office today because it's an environment that I want to spend time in, right? And two is, there are things that I can achieve in that environment that I physically just cannot achieve on my own. And so working with clients through what is actually a really human experience, it's got nothing to do with tech, right? The tech will specify itself, right? Is actually, and this is the risk here, is if organizations push too hard on, hey, everybody's got to be back in the office, we're not listening, we're not interested in hearing what you've got to say, is you're going to lose the ability to actually make that stick long term. Because actually you need their input on, hey, what do we need to do with our environment and with our facilities now to make them somewhere where we can achieve more? And you need their input, right? You have to have users' input in designing solutions that are going to draw them out of their habits, right, for the last X amount of years. So I just think the office environment has to take an entirely different look and feel. It can't just be a brick and mortar with some desks and some conference rooms, right? Because we look what we're doing now. We can do that from home, right? And so I think if you want to onboard people into that shift in mindset, it's got to be far more than functional.
Then maybe what needs to be done is the employer needs to have a more lenient leave policy. You need to be face to face, but if you have to do an appointment or do a family function or do something like that, yeah, go ahead and do it, but just come back here and get done what you need to get done. So maybe the 9 to 5 or the typical workday has to be adjusted so that you are spending the time in the office, but you have some flexibility to get stuff done at home. Because I think we all sort of got, used to being able to be flexible when you're at home, get your work done, get all your personal things done, and get that done in a very specific period of time. So maybe that would be an incentive to say, hey, I can come into the office, do my thing, but I know I can get my other things done. And it still is basically you're still in person. Maybe that's the solution.
There's been I think we sometimes forget there's been a lot happen in the world in the last 10 years, right? That's made people and human beings genuinely reflect and revalue, place a greater value on their own time and how they want to spend that. And so I think that's a really important part of this puzzle. If organizations want to genuinely make this happen, right, is it's all about actually getting people involved in shaping that and how that journey from getting where they are now to predominantly remote to getting back in the office it's that whole bring everybody on the journey with you rather than sort of beating everybody over the head with a stick and forcing everybody in. I just don't think that's going to be successful long term.
No, that stick very, very much feels like what Mr. Diamond is doing, and I don't know Mr. Diamond from anything, so don't throw things at me. Kelly, you'll have the last word on this. How do you walk clients through this, right? How do you walk IT and AV managers through this process?
So AV IT and managers are just a different breed because they're looking at this from a different standpoint. Obviously, as an AV IT manager, I can assume that the first thing they're going to think is increased demand on IT and AV infrastructure and how much cost cutting happened during this time that everybody was working from home, right? Obviously, with everyone being back in the office, there's a higher bandwidth usage. Wi-Fi upgrades are going to happen, hardware refresh needs, conference room and collaboration space challenges. I don't think hybrid meetings are going anywhere. I think those are here to stay. So even with a return to office push, some employees will still work remotely, requiring, video conferencing solutions, more meeting room requests. And I think if you had asked me this question, I would say even in 2022, I was and I still am for working in the office. I would love to have an office to go to, a few days a week at least. But as a mom now, and with all the commuting and just being the, person that, I'm a mom and I'm a full-time employee, you're going to have a lot of incentive to have people, like especially in my situation, return to work, because there's been numerous studies done on, I think there was a Stanford study about how it was hybrid was more, there was more efficiency behind and more production because there was fewer distractions, improved focus, people had more control over their schedules, which was leading to better time management. And that may not be the case with everyone. But, I think there are some challenges and pressures, with IT security and compliance as well. There's just going to be, are we going to see more increased cybersecurity threats too? I feel like that's a downside to having everybody work in the office again. Is how many threats are going to be with everybody returning with their BYOD device or increased zero trust security models. So I worry about that sometimes. But I think with the workplace experience and the smart office expectations, I think the rise of smart office tech, and this is what I always tell people, I know employees will expect a modern hot desking system, IoT-enabled meeting rooms and touchless AV controls. I think that in its own will inspire people to come back because they don't have that at home, and this is exactly why I want an office to go to. And right now I think they're working on that, but I want an office to go to because I don't have that, occupancy and space utilization monitoring. I have to coordinate with people through Teams, and I don't have that enhanced employee experience. A lot of IT and AV teams will need to focus on, better support systems to create a smooth return to office experience, and a lot of that falls on the AV and IT manager to make that happen. And I feel like, with budget constraints and IT and AV staffing concerns, I just think there's, you got to get past those hiring and retention challenges, and you got to balance the hybrid and in-office needs. So a lot of IT leaders must manage competing demands for both in-office and hybrid-friendly tech investments. So, there's You've got to audit and upgrade your network infrastructure. You've got to invest in hybrid-friendly collaboration tools. You've got to prioritize meeting room AV tech. You've got to enhance the cybersecurity. You've got to scale IT support teams, monitor and adapt workplace tech. And you have to use those analytics that you have and that feedback that you have to refine those office tech needs. And I think once people see that and hear that, I think that'll definitely encourage them to come into the office more, because you're essentially getting what you can't get at home. And I would love that. I'm a full-time remote employee right now, so I would love to have that. And I'm one of those people that likes to go in the office, and I can't utilize those resources from here.
I think it's interesting that you brought up the enhanced cybersecurity threats, because you're right. Right now, if you're working remote and you do something silly, IT can just shut you from the pipe, right? If you do that sitting in a cubicle or your office, the threat is almost immediate. So yeah, that's a very interesting point to bring up. All right, gang, thank you guys so much. Rob Raspberry from Drexel University. How do people connect with you or Drexel?
Well, best way is LinkedIn. Rob Raspberry, that's the best way to get me.
All right, very good. Kelly Teal, thank you, ma'am. How do people connect with you?
LinkedIn as well, and I think it's Kelly Teal on there. I haven't updated it, but I can be found on there.
Maybe between now and Monday, you can just at least make sure it says TL.
It does. I just checked.
All right. Elliot Morris, thank you, sir. I appreciate your time. How do people connect with you? It feels weird, but also how do they connect with CTI?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so you can connect with me on LinkedIn under eMoores, or certainly we'll be out. Well, the whole gang will be out at ISE. So feel free to catch the PSNI booth, which is booth TW400. So, like I say, if you're another integrator and want to jump by and have a coffee and shoot the dirt, or if you're an IT or AV manager, feel free to reach out. We'd love to see you.
All right, very good. We will also be at ISE, but first go by the website, AVNation.tv. That's AVNation.tv. You'll find this program and a host of others. I have a brand new Women in AV podcast looking at the future of the AV industry. So check that out. Our friend Erica Carroll hosted that. I mentioned the fact that we're going to be at ISE. You can check that out. AVNation.tv/ISE-25. Mitchell's already got, probably 36 preview videos up there as well. All kinds of articles. We'll be heading to ISE 4th through the 7th. We're hosting our tweet up 4:30 to 6 on 4th of February. That is the Tuesday in the HD Base Tees booth. So thank them so much for their support there. For Tim Albright, don't follow me anywhere. If you're interested in my writings that have nothing to do with technology, I will warn you that first and foremost. You can connect with me on LinkedIn if you'd like. If you're watching this on YouTube and you're tired of looking at my dumb face, go check us out on Spotify or Apple iTunes or anything else where you get your podcast. If you're just listening to us and want to see what these fine folks look like, you can check us out on YouTube. So yeah, go the opposite direction. But all that and more at avnation.tv. That's avnation.tv. Thanks so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. That is all the time we have for AV Week.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
Hello, this is Steve Greenblatt, host of AVNation's State of Control podcast. Each month, Rich Fregosa and I explore trending topics related to control programming and automation in the audiovisual industry. We speak with a variety of AV professionals who share their perspectives, knowledge, and experiences. Please join us for this monthly conversation. Check out A State of Control on avnation.tv or wherever you get your podcasts.